Thank you for coming to today's session on maximising Australia's Defence Trade Show outcomes. We're really excited to also have Hanwha present their view on quad charts and what it means to them. And joining us from Hanwha is Millie Keating, and also her colleagues from EOS is Paul and Phillips. Preparing for a trade show is really important, and it takes time. And we have Land Forces coming up, and we wanted to put today's session on for members so that you can actually prepare and get the most out of your trade show. Now, because of COVID, we're all out of practice of going to a trade show. I know I am. I haven't attended one for over 18 months. I think the calluses on my feet have softened up. The muscles in my legs have degenerated, so I can't withstand the long hours of standing and walking the halls. So I've got to get a bit of training in with me. So I think we're all out of practice. So Land Forces is going to be a really exciting trial run for Avalon, which is the end of this year, which I'm really looking forward to as well. We're going to go over what to expect from a trade show and what you should do to get the most out of it, how to put your trade show strategy together, and most importantly, what you need to do post the trade show. It's really good to be excited and come to sessions like this and do everything pre-trade show, but one of the most important things out of a trade show is the follow-up, because that's where the rubber really does hit the ground when it comes to BD for your business. So, Land Forces. In 2018, there was hundreds of exhibitors and lots of attendees. Not likely to have the same numbers this year because of COVID. We're not likely to see the same amount of international delegations as what we've enjoyed in the past, which means we're suspecting it's going to be more of a domestic focus, which is probably a good opportunity for Australian industry, more spotlight, more time for Australian industry to get visibility in front of key customers. So that's going to be a good opportunity. Also in attendance, for those who've never attended a trade show, particularly Land Forces, is there anyone in the room who hasn't attended Land Forces before? Okay, so there's a few of you. So this is for those who are seasoned trade show attendees, and there's a few of you, yes, I can see you. You're going to realise that a trade show is the ideal opportunity for you to actually get close contact with the end user of your product or service. If you're delivering an innovative product or a service directly into defence, that's going to be used by the Australian warfighter. And in attendance at trade shows is usually the end user. And that's an opportunity for you to engage in conversations in a fashion you wouldn't normally get an opportunity to do so as part of your normal BD. So we're going to talk about how you can get the most out of seizing those conversations, because when you're developing your products and you're evolving your service delivery, what better way to evolve your product and service than to make sure that what you're evolving meets the needs of the end user. Sure, you might be supplying into a prime or a tier 2, but if you have a better understanding of what the end user needs and wants, what their hot buttons are, their challenges are, it's going to really help you and how you do your business in the long run. There's going to be academia there and all sorts of industry. Your competitors will be there. You need to be prepared for that. But they're also an opportunity for you to team as well. In fact, some of you will be standing side by side your competitors on the Defence SA stand. So this is one of the things about the DTC. We stand for teaming, and one of the things about the DTC community is that we encourage collaboration. One day you might be competing with a business. The second, you're coming together and teaming for a collaboration joint bid. That's the nature of business, and that's what we encourage at the DTC. There's also going to be conferences and seminars held simultaneously whilst the show, Trade Expo or show is going on. So if you go to the website, you will see the schedule of conferences and events. Some of them you have to register, some of them are invitation only. Take the time to see what's being offered and nominate and get your name down to anything that actually takes your interest. It's an opportunity to take on board some free information, and a lot of it is actually really good. You can get policy updates. You've got primes providing overviews of their programs. You'll have Pitch Fest, so if you are looking for some innovative product to help take your business or your solution to the next level, you can attend Pitch Fest and see what new innovation is emerging from other companies. So a lot is happening. So once you've done your signing up and your registrations, what else do you need to do? Marketing material, make sure you've got enough printed, make sure you've got enough prepared. One thing you don't want to be doing is what the DTC does pretty much every year, is leave everything to the last minute. We have to fly with our catalogues and our magazines on the airplane. It's not fun, it's heavy, it's not easy to cart that stuff around. I should be leading by example, but sadly I don't, because people don't submit their quad charts to me on time. So when I'm printing my capability catalogue to help promote your business, when people leave it to the last minute, that pushes me up against a deadline. It forces me to carry these boxes of magazines on the plane. Not easy to do, let me assure you. So your marketing material, get it printed in time and get it delivered straight to trade show so you don't have to lug it all around the airports and hurt your back. Business cards. You will need plenty of business cards. Okay? Be prepared. Better to take business cards home than to run out. QR codes. We are all accustomed to doing and using QR codes. Get your QR code for your business card into a sticker, put it on the back of your phone. There's an app out there where you can actually, people can scan your phone. That's my business card. If you were to scan that, it will take it directly into your contacts and save it into your phone, complete with my mugshot. So there's no excuses to not miss out on getting that valuable lead from anyone. Now, personal preparation. Yeah, it might sound like common sense, but guess what? Comfortable shoes. Men, don't laugh. You will have sore feet by day 2, I guarantee you. Make sure you pack some gel insoles. Ladies, flat shoes. Give up the notion of stilettos. They may look great, but I assure you, you'll be in tears after day 1. And trust me, the guys don't look at your feet, so they're not going to laugh at you if you're wearing Skechers. I've been doing it for years and no one's commented yet. Hydration. You are going to need lots of water. You're going to be talking a lot. I know I do. It's an air-conditioned environment, big, busy halls. You go through a lot of water and sustenance. You will be manning your stand if you have a stand or a pod, and you'll be your only representative of your business on that stand. It may be difficult for you to get away and get some lunch, because you might have a delegation come through and you're not exactly going to leave your stand when there's a delegation coming through and go, oh, I'm hungry, I'm sorry, I'm going to go out and get myself a bite. You're going to stay there, aren't you? Because it's an opportunity. So make sure you've got some protein bars, some muesli bars to keep you hydrated and sustained for the duration of the stand. And just in case you're hungover. Now, phone chargers, spare batteries, go common sense. Yes, you will need a spare battery and a phone charger. These babies don't last all day, despite what the marketing material tells you. I get to 1 o'clock in the day and I need some more juice. So make sure you've got some juice handy. And if you're smart, you can also carry some extra juice and sell it off to people who will be desperate to pay you anything for battery. Now, leads book. What is a leads book? Now, a leads book is an A3 book. Actually, I've got one here. A3? No, it's not. It's A5. Why A5? Because it's easy to carry. It's nice and small. Get away with it. Now, a leads book is where you'll record your business cards and your conversations that you've had with your companies. Carry a little stapler or a little roll of sticky tape on your stand and staple the card into the book complete with your notes. Why do that? Because sadly we are all getting old, Alzheimer's is kicking in, and we won't be remembering the following week the leads, the conversations we had with all of those customers. There are hundreds of people in attendance at the trade show. That means lots of conversations. Record the follow-up actions in your leads book. Record the little personal notes about that customer, what you might have liked, what you didn't like. Now, if you're going to go down that extent, be careful about what you do with your leads book. Don't leave your leads book laying around on your trade stand where your competitors or someone else might be able to get hold of it, because that's very important intelligence for your BD. When you get back to the office, you can then give your leads book to various people in your business to follow up certain leads. You can flag those ones that just send them a promo email. What are the ones that are really important to follow up? So that's a really useful tip to keep handy. Mints. I said, and I joked about being hungover. It's a joke, yes, but the reality is there are networking drinks, and we haven't seen many of our friends for a long time. You'll go out and you'll have a drink. Just remember, the next day you'll be speaking to people. I'm short, so people talk down to me. That means I get the full force of their breath down coming here, and it is not nice. So Make sure you have plenty of breath mints. Remember, you are there to work. You are there to promote and represent your business. And if you're going on an international trade show, you're actually representing your country. So just be aware of how you're actually presenting and how you smell. The scotch is nice the night before, but not so good the next day, trust me on that one. Okay, so quad chart. Who has not got their quad chart done yet? Okay, so we've got a couple in the room and a few, okay, we've got, now that people, oh yes, we're all in that same boat. So the quad chart's a really important document. It's what we use in the defence industry sector to be able to succinctly communicate our capability statements to, mainly to the Defence Primes and to the Department of Defence. We like it because it's an easy document on a page and it's easy to keep up to date and it's cost effective. A quad chart means you don't have to print off handfuls and handfuls of marketing paraphernalia. I used to be the AIC manager for Lockheed Martin's Combat System Program. And when I went to Pacific Maritime many years ago, I had a lineup of people wanting to meet with me to get into the Combat System Program. When I walked away from that trade show, I had a stack about this high of marketing paraphernalia. It was very heavy. I didn't take it back with me from Sydney back to Adelaide. I threw it in the bin because I couldn't take it back with me on the plane. Not to mention the fact of me going back and referring to it at a later date was going to be problematic because a lot of it was mountains and mountains of reading material for which I didn't have time to do. A quad chart, a simple statement on a page that helps me determine at a glance as to whether you're the right fit for my program or for my organisation is more effective for me. So if I'm only going to throw your stuff in the bin, it's a good idea not to give it to me at the first conversation. Save your money. Use that and keep that stuff for the second conversation. You say stuff costs money, so use it really wisely and sparingly. Now I'm really pleased to be able to promote the DTC's Quad Chart Preparation Guide. We've been waiting for years for government to be able to produce something like this, materials for industry, to help industry engage in defence. And we got tired of waiting, so the DTC produced this guide for you, our members, and for industry. We consulted with our member primes and asked them to provide some tips, some tricks and advice on what they find useful in a quad chart. This is available from our website. You were all given a soft copy of this guide. I hope you do use it, and you can now refer to this forever in your business. When you have staff changes, people can refer to this and use this to help keep your quad charts updated. So just quickly, what's a good quad chart? So a good quad chart is one that supports the conversation. So remember, when you go to a trade show, you're going to have lots and lots of conversations. And in fact, people like Millie and her colleagues and myself, when we're working for primes, we have people lining up to speak to us, people lining up wanting to get into our supply chain. There are 7.5 hours in the day at the trade show, and people lining up to see you means I can only spend about 10-15 minutes with each of you. And that means I don't have a lot of time for a long conversation. So the conversation the quad chart needs to support the conversation, not be the entire conversation. So by that I mean it needs to be eye-catching and it needs to be able to portray as much information without forcing the person to have to read every single word on it. So you should be looking at using some graphics, using some pictures, using some facts for your quad chart. Don't use motherhood statements. It needs to focus on your value proposition of your organisation. I've been reviewing a number of quad charts in the preparation for land forces, and I'm perplexed to understand why we still have organisations who don't understand how to communicate the value proposition. So when you're talking, your quad chart's not you talking about you. You have to put your business in the shoes of your potential customer. What is the problem you are trying to solve for your customer? Don't expect your customer to read your capability statement and figure out where you fit in their supply chain. That's your job. You need to do your homework. You need to research the customer. You need to understand their program, their project, find out what capability they're looking for, and then pitch your business accordingly. The sooner you can do that, the easier it is for you to have a conversation and to get to the right person in the organisation to have a meaningful conversation about a long-term contract. It's a challenge. These things aren't easy to do. I know the DTC quad chart, I did the first version 3 years ago, and I'm still continually changing it. Why? Because I don't know, I get up a week later and I think, no, I don't like that, I'll keep changing it. Because it's the type of thing that you're striving for perfection. You continue to look at it and you just want to keep nailing it. And plus, you ask people for advice, they'll give you feedback. So you take it on board. Some advice is not so good, some advice you won't agree with, that's fine. And that's the idea of doing it in PowerPoint or doing it in Word. It means you can update it really easily and quickly. So, value proposition. What is a value proposition? So remember, the value proposition is not you talking about you. It's about you figuring out how you are a solution fit for your customer. So what is your customer's problems? How do you solve your customer's problem? Now, if you don't know what your customer's problems are, then you need to go do some homework. You'll be a much better return of investment on your time to go do some market research, go research your target customers and find out exactly what are they looking for. Because as soon as you can do that, you can actually have a meaningful conversation immediately. Your value proposition also needs to be able to define the products and services that you offer. Now, this is hard because it's not about you talking about yourself, but it's how your products and services alleviate your customers' pains. So as soon as you can say, we deliver, for example, the DTC, we help companies navigate the defence industry sector more quickly to fast-track their BD efforts. Pain point is a BD effort. Navigating the defence sector is a service. Okay, it took us 3 years to figure that out. Doesn't sound like much. 3 years just to come up with that. And we're still trying to figure it out as well as we're continually refining it, nailing it. And you will too with your organisation. And don't forget, going to Land Forces, your value proposition might be quite different to going to Avalon Airshow. Your value proposition for Hanwha might be completely different to Airbus. So things to consider, you might have a generic value proposition, but then you might target it and change it ever so slightly. For me, I have a different value proposition for a defence prime when I'm encouraging a defence prime to join the DTC community. The value proposition I use for academia is completely different to the value proposition I communicate to an SME. Last but not least is that your value proposition, how does it create value for your customer? Customers want value because in the supply chain that you're operating in, one of the key decision makers is value for money. It's not up to the prime or your customer to find how your service offering represents value for money. You've got to define that. Just because you're Australian doesn't mean you're a value for money. Okay, it might be a discriminator, but it doesn't mean value for money. You've got to communicate and sell what is the value of your business. And again, that is not an easy question. These things might sound easy. We've got 4 dot points there, and you might think that you could sit down for about 10-15 minutes and answer those questions. Each one of those is a full day workshop to truly understand your business and your target customers. So, easiest way to, and this slide pack will be made available by the way, the easiest way to help you get your value proposition documented and put into the right format is to think about your customer, the benefit that the customer gets from you, from the feature of your solution, and the proof. Now, the proof is really important because without that proof, it's just a motherhood statement. It's just you saying, I am good. So, you might have, yeah, here's one. So as an example, clients on the ground services reduce maintenance and inventory costs by commissioning one of our dedicated on-the-ground on-site service centres that have been demonstrated to reduce service turnaround time by an average of 46%. 46% is the proof. The value to the customer is the reduced maintenance and inventory costs. The service offering is the commissioning of the dedicated on-the-ground service centre. So immediately when a customer reads that, you're telling them that you can reduce their costs by up to 46%. That's pretty eye-catching. That took us a day to come up with that for that client, so that's work that we do in partnership with Shipley Wins. So we're going to take a quick 5 minutes, not for you to review your value proposition, but to think about what are the actions you need to take away from today to hone in on your value proposition. Does your value proposition, do you know what the problem is that you're solving? Do you know how your product differs from your competitors? Do you know who your competitors are? How can you prove what you're offering? Some of you might need to go and do some data evidence gathering, maybe get some client testimonials, maybe get a customer to talk about what you delivered and how it was of value to them. Client testimonials are very powerful because they're third party. The challenge then will be for you is to reduce that to 1 or 2 sentences. So that's something that you should be focusing on at the conclusion of today's workshop, and when you get these slides, remember, customer gets the benefit from the feature of your solution. And you've got to provide that proof. Right, so you've got your quad chart, you've seen the DTC, we've helped you review it, you've taken your quad chart to someone who is a whiz on PowerPoint and has thrown a bit of graphics in there and it's all looking hunky-dory and you're prepared to go have that first meeting with a customer. You need to be prepared to have a conversation. Sounds simple, but this is a potential customer. Now in defence, relationships take a long time to build. We often say it takes 3 to 5 years to build or secure work in the defence industry sector. That's because it's built on relationships. Relationships start with conversations. Conversations evolve over time. How do you get that first conversation started? It's through your elevator pitch. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be engaging. When I was at at Pacific, and I had people queuing up to see me, I lost count of the amount of people who sat down from me and said, "Hi, how are you?" "Yeah, good." "So, well, tell me about yourself. What's your business do?" "Well, we do blah, 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 blah. And we do this. And I think Lockheed needs us." Right, okay. If you can't get excited about your product or service, how am I supposed to get excited by it? So, you know, everything that you do when you are representing your business is on show. Every time. When you go to the BD after 5 drinks, you are on show. Your business is on show. You are continually representing and growing your business. So, you need to be interesting. Sounds basic, sounds really minor, sounds common sense. So why do I see so many people get it so wrong? It needs to be memorable. And it needs to be succinct. It needs to start a conversation. It needs to engage someone. Get them to want to have a conversation with you to learn more about your business. Because if you don't do that, you are talking at them. The moment you are talking at a customer, they are not interested in you. So you've just lost that opportunity to engage and grow your business. Sounds basic, but smile. Now, get your attention and interest. Get people to engage with you, smile and have a chat with them. Invite them to talk to you. So how do you invite someone to talk to you? So you ask them some questions and you talk to them about how you are a solution fit for that business. So when you go to a trade show, and particularly when you go to DTC, BD After 5 events, you'll notice your name tags are all written in large font. Now that is because I'm going blind so that I can see everyone's names really clearly, but it's also to help you as well. So easy just to side glance and see someone's name very clearly and the company who they work for. Take note of who they work for. Are they a target customer or not? And if they're not a target customer, you just have a short conversation with them and then move on to your target customer. But if you can see and start reading the name tags, you'll very quickly find out your target customers. Oh my gosh, I just saw someone from BAE. He's standing there right in front of me. I've got to have this conversation. I've been trying to get a meeting with BAE for the last year. They're right here. What do I do? Because you saw the name tag. Okay, so immediately you have an opportunity. Jump on it. G'day John, how you going? My name's Audra, I'm from the DTC. Really excited to have you here today. Really excited by the program that you guys have on offer. I really want to have a chat to you about that if you don't mind. Can I get you a drink from the bar? They're all free at the moment, so it's my shout. No, you don't do that. But you've got to be, interesting. So, because these people are tired. They see people coming at them all the time, so you've got to stand out from the crowd. So smile is a great way to engage people and they will be excited about you simply because you are smiling. So, land forces, lanyards. Just a quick tip, I'll give you this tip. Ladies, be careful about where your lanyards rest. Okay, so I've just told you all how to stalk and read people's names. When you're at the trade shows, the lanyards usually sit around in this region. Depending on your height, that region can be awkward for some people. So just be wary of where you're positioning your lanyard and your name tag. Make sure it's positioned where you don't feel uncomfortable people are looking. So, just be conscious of these little tips and tricks. And it's great for me being short because I don't have to go like this. Everyone's name tag is at my eye level. It's awesome, really awesome. For the really tall people in the room, if you can't read someone's name tag, just drop your pen. Look at the name tag as you're going down. Sounds basic, I know. You can buy me a beer after the show for that little free tip. And that's really subtle. There's nothing wrong with that. So, I do it all the time. Terrible with names. So, when you're going to do your elevator pitch, how do you engage someone to talk with you? And they say, hey, what do you do? You say, well, you know what it's like when you get in the defence sector and you don't know where to start? It's such a big organisation. How do you tap into this sector? It's really hard. The person you're talking to goes, yeah, I do know that. And you go, well, what I do is I take companies by the hand and I help them navigate that, so I take the pain out of the process. Oh. Is that something that's of interest to you? Because it is, because when you said, does that happen to you? They go, yeah, they're relating to your product or service immediately. So suddenly you're putting yourself in a position where you're gaining immediate feedback from whether the person is genuinely interested or has a need for your product or service. This is as much about you getting information from them as them getting information from you. You can work out very quickly whether you're targeting the right company or not, whether they're right interested or not, and you can choose amicably to go different ways if the conversation is not going to be of mutual benefit to anyone. So how many of you feel comfortable having a conversation like that? See, my long-standing DTC members are, they've been coming to sessions. Well done, David, thank you. Gold star. So, yeah, it is hard though. I've been doing this for 10 years and I can assure you the first time I did this, it wasn't easy. It certainly didn't come easy at all, and it's taken me many, many years to refine and learn how to do it. But the more you do it, the easier it is. And the more you know about your business, and the more you know about your customers, and the more excited you are about your business, the easier it is. Shouldn't be hard work, particularly if you love what you do. So, don't speak too fast. I am guilty of this one. I speak very quickly, in case you hadn't noticed. And that doesn't matter how hard I try, I still speak very quickly. When I speak slowly, I've done a couple of voiceovers for the DTC and I've spoken very slowly. And I've said to them, I feel as though I had slowed down that much, that I was very, very boring. They said, no, it was great. So I'm always guilty, but I'm constantly trying to work on that one. Don't ramble, okay? So people want to talk about themselves as much as you want to talk about yourself as well. So you're going to have to learn when to shut up and let them speak as well. So you've got to be looking out for those cues. And I said it before, don't speak in monotone. So when you smile, suddenly your pitch is elevated. that means you're a little bit more excited about what you do. And, you know, open your mouth, don't mumble, particularly us short people. Can't hear you from all the way up there. You'd be surprised, in noisy areas, you are up here somewhere having a conversation that goes across my head. And so I have to look up and hear and listen very carefully to what's being said in a noisy environment. So you need to be mindful of that. So engage, adjust your language and your words to suit your audience. Why do you have to suit your words to the audience? Does anyone know what I used to do for a living, what my qualification is? I'm an accountant, qualified CPA. Yet I was the AIC manager for the combat system program for Lockheed Martin. Do I know what a combat system is? Do I know how to build a combat system? I'm not a technical person. So my job was to find industry that met a requirement. That I can do. I'm an analyst by trade. Accountants are analysts. But I'm not a technical person. The engineers gave me the requirements, gave me the specs. I'd go out to market and find the right people and do this matchmaking session. But when I had software engineers going into the depths and the bowels of their code, telling me how exciting it was, what language they were using, and some of the complex things they were doing, it was very eye-watering. And I continually kept looking for that. What was that facial expression I was giving that made them led them to believe that I was really digging what they were talking about? Because I had to make note of that so I could stop doing that facial expression, because it was getting very, very tiresome. But some people just are so passionate about their technical expertise, they forget that not everyone has that same technical ability. So when the DTC reviews your quad charts, some of the feedback we've provided to companies is it's too technical, because it's a conversation starter, and the person you are meeting with the company may not be the chief engineer of the project. So you've got to have enough information there to get the attention, but not go down into the bowels of the details and requirements. So it's a fine line, but you've got to look at the cues on the person. If they're, you know, if their eyes are watering and if they're starting to look around, then, you know, clearly you've gone too technical. So just be aware of that.
Hi everyone, I'm Millie Keating. I'm the Head of Industrial Development for Hanwha Defence Australia, and within my remit is AIC for both of our programs, Land 8116 and Land 400 Phase 3. With me today, I've got some of my colleagues from Electro-Optic Systems. Paul Gibbs is down the front here, and Phil Henderson, thought he snuck in, but there he is in the middle. Hanwha's very new, and we have particular views because we are new. EOS is well established, and they have views as well. So as I go through this, you might hear the odd chirp from the boys. We really want you to get some value out of this one. For those of you that don't know much about Hanwha, we have no physical presence yet, besides a rented office in the Melbourne CBD, but we are establishing a manufacturing facility in Geelong. The last 2 years has been a whirlwind, and we have received God knows how many quad charts. So I feel like maybe we've got something to add here. So just tapping in on what Audra said earlier, context is important. It is the most important thing. Why are you producing this quad chart? What is the outcome that you are seeking? And we want to look at effective quad charts and that tailoring, meeting that context from two different dimensions. One of them is about us. Now that's very selfish, but I'm going to say it. How do you, among literally thousands of companies who've heard that Hanwha's coming and have contacted us and have sent a quad chart, how do you stand out? Knowing a little bit about us is really important, and knowing what we're looking for is exceptionally important. So I've put on the screen here a couple of things about Hanwha Defence Australia that really you should think about as you produce a quad chart. At the moment, our focus is land vehicle programs. If you're targeting HDA for that purpose, focus on land. But bear in mind, over the next couple of years, you'll see other parts of the Hanwha business emerge, and that tailoring will be even more important. Technology development, have a look at our background. We are a technology services company. We are the Samsung of the defence industry. We're not just vehicle manufacturers. That's important to us too. Yes, we're expanding, we're in Geelong. We need to be seen as a low-risk option to the ADF. Nobody knows about us yet. We don't have an income. We've got great partners like EOS who are well established, but we need suppliers who are going to help keep that risk threshold low. So if we can build confidence in your business through your quad chart, that's an immediate eye grabber for us. Finally, we're headquartered in the Republic of Korea. There are cultural differences between Australians and Koreans, but we're actually more similar than you'd think. That being said, if you've done business before in Korea or in Japan or anywhere in that region, tell us, because we automatically know that you know something about dealing with companies like our parent company and companies like our parent company's partners who also see Hanwha's entrance in Australia as an opportunity for them. And when I say that, it's not an opportunity for them to come in and sell to us. They want to build relationships with people like you and grow together. So there are a couple of key pointers on us. Paul, Phil, what are the things that people should be focusing on for electro-optic systems?
So electro-optic systems, for those of you that aren't aware, it's headquartered out of Canberra and is a well-established defence provider into Australia and globally. The main thing to focus on us is a really well-established supply chain and a really well-established position in the global market for the defence capabilities that they specialise in. That's the main point of difference between us and Hanwha. Our value proposition is different to theirs. Your value proposition to us is going to differ. And to come back to the main point that Audra had before, if you were to target to us, then to understand what we require means that you've got to understand the business as a well-established defence partner in Australia as opposed to a new area. I can elaborate further as we go through and probably will.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so what EOS is looking for is reliability. We all have come to realise over the last 12 months how fragile the supply chain is and how fragile it will continue to be. So for EOS, we are looking for people who are going to give us what we want and when we need it. So I'm probably not telling you anybody anything yet, but it is key for us that people are going to give us those things that we need when we want them.
Awesome, thanks Phil. So I guess if I was to summarise that, we, Hanwha, are looking for new partners. We want to understand what you can do. We're in that learning phase, but remember, we're being flooded. These guys have learned. They have established suppliers. Why are they going to change suppliers? There's someone more reliable, there's a better product, they've got a new product. So slightly different story. Talking about the situation or the objective. So it was a bit of chaos this time last year when we were doing the Land 400 Phase 3 roadshow and it stopped and went online. Some of you might have been caught up in that. But during that roadshow, we met with 400 companies. How do you make sure that in that context, where you're pitching to 2 vehicle manufacturers, that you stand out to both of them at different points in time? So that lends you to for that sort of environment, a more generic quad chart, because there is a broader audience with a broader purpose. Rheinmetall know a lot of you. We were just starting. That's different to a tender response. And we've been doing a lot of market testing and we're getting a lot of quad charts come through as part of a tender pack. Tell us what is in that quad chart that we asked for in the RFP. If you just attach a quad chart and not reference it in the actual response document, people either won't look at it because they see it as a general, like this is your standard quad chart type document. But if you say, let's say in a section that says respondents are to provide this information, past performance, main contact point, locations, and if that's in your quad chart, make sure you reference in your proposal, refer to quad chart, because otherwise it doesn't really stand out to us. The final point, unsolicited approaches. We get a lot of these. If you send an email with a quad chart attached, explain to us how you fit in, as Audra mentioned earlier. What is it that you do and how does that align to what I want? Please don't send an email that says, hello, I'm Bob, here's my quad chart, can you tell me how I'd fit in your program? It does happen. And that's hard because then I've got to ask 20 questions to get to a point where I can start a conversation. And by that point, the impact probably wasn't what you were seeking. So the usuals, what are we looking for in a quad chart? None of this should surprise you. Business capabilities, previous customers, make them relevant, and where they've done something that's especially relevant, or you've done something for them that's especially relevant, tell us what that is. We often get lists of customers that people have worked with, and if that's following on from a statement that says, my company has worked with 90% of the defence primes in Australia, bang, 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 bang. Did you need to use that space with all the numbers? If it's 90%, I've got a good sense. Maybe just name 3 or 4 of them and tell us what you did, because it could be anything. That really helps us. If it is directly relevant but from another sector, and we're seeing a lot in Melbourne around, what's the fancy name for trains? They call it... rolling stock, yeah. The first time I heard that, I was like, yes. And then I realised, it's a train. Anyway, but there's a lot of companies doing work for rolling stock, for new trams, for old trams in Melbourne. All of that stuff, it's so relevant to what we're looking for. So tell us about that too, but tell us how it's relevant. Grants that you've received or that are underway. If Defence has given you money for a new robotic welder, tell us. Because as much as we can demonstrate to the customer that someone is getting a return on their investment, we want to. That's what the grant programs are for. I've mentioned sector diversification a bit. I get Hanwha land vehicle programs, that'll be the focus of your quad chart. But we also want to know that your business is learning and that your business is not going to be relying on us 5 days a week, 365 days a year to keep filling orders. If there's some way, maybe it's a graph that shows your sector exposure. Something that lets us know, are you a purely defence supplier? Do you dabble in lots of things? Or what is it? What is your business focus? Exports, if you've done any, very important. Cultural awareness, I mentioned that previously. It's as simple as putting a logo of a Korean company and saying, well, if there's a logo of a Korean company, my Korean colleagues will jump on it and say it's them. But I have to temper that a little. A logo says a lot when it's a company that is, whatever you're doing for them, it doesn't matter, like an export story. If you're exporting, that's great. Your point of contact. We got so many quad charts for the roadshow with no point of contact. And when I pull together a set of quad charts to send to a company to say, hey, have you thought about talking to these guys? Do you think they're going to call you? If I've given them 10 and yours is the one with no contact point. So it sounds simple, but please remember that. Now, some other things that are important, and you might not intuitively jump onto these. The key point here is what is important to our customer, Defence, is important to us. So if you're providing a quad chart to us, like you would an RFP, like you will at the trade show, how are you reflecting what you know we need to do for Defence in what you're saying to us? If you can draw that link, it makes our job easier. So we all know the customer wants to deal with more SMEs. They want to deal with businesses in regional areas. Veteran-owned, Indigenous-owned and controlled businesses also have a real flavour within the current policy. If you are not one of those types of businesses, but you enable those types of businesses, that is important too. Sovereign capability. Now, this goes back to the comment Audra said earlier around statements with no real meaning, baseless statements. To tell us that you're a sovereign capability when you're an Australian business, we know. Sovereign industrial capability priority is different. This is that handful of things that the customer has said, these are the most important thing to me. If you're able to tell us, not that you're a sovereign business, because we know you're Australian, but if you somehow deliver on a sovereign industrial capability priority, so you might do development of protection system solutions, which is part of a SICP. We look at that and we go, well, we have a responsibility to grow these types of businesses. That draws the link. Now that's an easy one. For me, who's not a technical person, when we get into things like systems assurance and all the cybery things that I don't understand, if you do those things, that helps people like me recognise that you're what our customer's looking for. Workforce and skilling. What are you doing for your workforce? What are you doing for the future workforce? Again, it could be as simple as a dot point saying that you're involved in a particular skilling program with a high school. That's great. Global exposure, collaboration, innovation, all the buzzwords that sit with AIC. All of those themes are important to us. So if you have that front of mind as you're going through the quad chart and doing the usuals, perhaps there'll be some things that you didn't realise you're doing that will increase your profile. Paul, Phil, do you have any comments to add to this?
Yeah, so this is probably the most important part, is to clarify the difference now in how important AIC is for what we do every day. So we've had previous experience AIC, current AIC for big companies and for the big contracts. So the main thing that we spend time talking to the end customer, to the Commonwealth about, is AIC, which is the two-way street, because the Commonwealth, the government, the taxpayer wants to know, if you're going to spend billions on a program like this, what comes back into industry, what comes back to suppliers, what comes back to your employees, what comes back through the taxes. This is the two-way street. It is critical we get this right. So in order for us to brief the Commonwealth and say, this is where we're going and these are the things we need, your value proposition to us is to tell us how you can assist us to increase our AIC. And if I can paint a picture very quickly, we've got the supplier of orange chairs, and we go to a place and there's 50 different suppliers of orange chairs, and they've got great quad charts and they tell us different ways that they make orange chairs, and we say, that's fantastic, that's awesome, what's the differentiator? The price, and then we go to pure procurement activity and we say the pricing's different, the quality standards and everything else. But what's going to set it apart for us in a project like a Land 400 Phase 3 is if we say you have veteran employees, or if you don't, you've signed up to the commitment, the veteran commitment. If you're an Indigenous company, if you have grants and things like that, all of the questions, and they're all freely available and we can provide follow-up information, are being asked of us. So when we sit in the Commonwealth and we regularly brief and go in, and we have to tick boxes all the way down that say we are committed to providing the maximum AIC content back to the customer, back to the Australian people. And we're going to be measured against those points. And at the end of the day, when they look at the numbers, they look at the capability. Here's the 2 infantry fighting vehicles for Phase 3. Here's how much they cost, pure procurement, great. How much of that is AIC is almost as critical, honestly, and as an area that you need to focus on to provide that value proposition to us, because if you're an employer, the veteran employer, you've got everything sorted, you've got your quality tick box in your organisation, you've already covered off on the defence security requirements for the security of information and data, all these things, and you outline that to us, we know you're mature as a defence supplier and ready to go. That's a big step forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Phil, anything to add?
Yeah, only that it's important for everybody in this room to think about what it is that their business does really, really well, and to tell us and explain to us why it is that you stand out from any other business. What is it that you do different? What skills do you have that are different? And more important, why those differences are going to help us produce the things that we need to produce.
Exactly right. To Paul's example, we need orange chairs. We've got all these sources. Who's going to give us that something extra? And it's not because we're selfish, even though 5 minutes ago I said we're selfish. This is about the customer. They want to see, and this has happened to us routinely over the last few months. Hey, Hanwha, how many Indigenous companies are you working with? And we tell them. They say, well, how many have you spoken to? And we tell them. And they say, well, why aren't there more? Or why haven't you done more? And it's because there aren't more. So we can do a bit. You guys can do a bit. Together, we can actually make an impact. So, Phil, great conduit. What sets you apart? What makes us buy orange chairs from you? Be really specific. I know Audra's covered this one already. Tell us exactly what it is, and if you can use data, amazing. Great one that we've seen was around a welding study that was done. We had companies come back to us saying, I scored in the top 5% of the DMTC welding study, of all armoured welding in Australia. Now, of course, we've got to know that that's a real statement, but when we can get validation for that statement, we've already started talking to the company. And the statement was true, which was amazing. So those sort of things that you've got, tell us. Mission statements and slogans can be really effective as well. Our mission statement, or for Hanwha Defence, ready, reliable, responsive. In those 3 words, you know what we stand for. What are those few words or that statement that sums up your business? Is it about innovation? Is it about reliability? Is it about giving back to the community? What is the purpose, the real purpose of your business? Achievements and awards, easy win. Anything you've received. We like to hear about that. And I've mentioned performance and using metrics. So this is the last slide, and please ask questions after this to any of us if you would like. But presentation. So content's really important. Presentation can sometimes hinder or enhance your content. And this sounds really simple, but it's really important. So back to the impact. What is the impact you want to have? If you want to come across as a professional, slick, really nuanced, specific professional services provider, you might have a really clean template, less boxes of content, a few statements, and maybe a cartoon type image, because that sends a message of your business. If you're rolling up your sleeves, tackle all the really hard manufacturing jobs, can do really big jigs, can do really tiny things, then you might have a few images on there and less words. You might have some certifications. That might be what you go for. We're going to make an assessment regardless. So if you haven't intentionally set the quad chart out to reflect the impact you want to have, you're leaving it for us to determine the impact we think you're trying to have. And sometimes those 2 things don't gel. Less is more. You don't have to say a heap. You just have to say enough that we want to keep talking. Space, yes, you've got quite a bit of space. You don't need to use it all. Which leads me to, I think, the most important part, being deliberate and cautious with images. If you're, back to point 1, wanting to have an impact that you're all about your team. You have the best people, the smartest people, they're great at R&D. You might have a picture of a couple of guys or girls in lab coats doing some research, measuring performance on a vehicle, whatever it is. That reflects the image you want. If you like doing the heavy duty manufacturing, don't put a big picture of a big jig on the quad chart. It's not using your space effectively, because we'll look at it and we'll go, oh, that's a big thing. But it doesn't tell us anything about your business. It actually happens. And I'm sure it is an amazing big thing, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what's your business.
No,
Me, never, no,
And do you come from a technical background?
no.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just highlight the point that, again, the gatekeeper into the organisation has a huge responsibility on them. So.
Spell it out for me. Certifications is great. Compelling pictures, awards, great. Yeah, I'm not a technical person. I've got heaps of those that'll come and talk to you for hours, but it's not me.
Did you used to be an accountant?
No, but I did work for an accounting company. Yeah. So yes, don't use too many pictures. Make sure it's telling a story. And if you have manufactured something that's really amazing, maybe you've manufactured a small watercraft, put a little caption on it so we know what you're talking about. Consistency in colours, font and branding. Again, this reflects on your business. If you've got lots of different colours or mismatched fonts, then we're going to say, oh, attention to detail. Maybe not great. Is that the message you want to send? Similarly, mismatched colours or colours that conflict with your branding might just not be aesthetically pleasing. And so when you're looking at lots of them, where do your eyes go? You always go to the pretty one. Sorry, not a technical background. Always the pretty one. And naming organisations you've worked with before. Now, put to the side that they've allowed you to do that. I'm sure that there are ways and means you can get that agreement. But what message are you trying to send through the businesses you are reflecting on your quad chart? Are you trying to tell us that you're really diversified and you manufacture for rolling stock and for heavy vehicles and for underground mining? Or are you trying to say, well, I'm really innovative and I've been doing R&D with all of these universities and all of these SMEs? So pick carefully. That says a lot. If you're doing something extremely relevant for a company, a logo is not enough. So for our current situation, there are 11 variants of Redback. 11. Painful, really painful. Lucky I'm not a technical person. And we've been looking for some really bespoke equipment. If we knew that there was a company that had designed crane or lifting equipment, and that was in their quad chart, that is an immediate contact. So if you said, yep, here's HIAB, supported crane development, that says far more than just a HIAB logo to us. So just have a think about that, and it's an easy shortcut. That is the end of what I wanted to talk about. Paul or Phil, anything else to add? Or do you want to open up to questions? No?
There's got to be a question. Come on, you don't get an opportunity like this to speak to people who are on the ground and your point of contact. Face-to-face time is really important, ladies and gentlemen. So.
Oh, yes. Love it, it worked. Matt?
Still a leading question for you, Millie.
Yeah.
Especially with the trade show, and you know what's coming at you in that week. How much time do people need to realise is a good, quality amount of time that they should expect to be able to spend with you? Because I tend to say to the people that I'm helping, it's between 5 and 15 minutes max. Like if you want anything more than that, you're being unrealistic. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think it's time of day as well. So day one in the morning is going to be chaos. If you go and approach someone, you're going to be closer to that 5 minutes because the line's going to be there. And everyone's excited. Same with drinks on the first night. Everyone's excited. You're going to get big crowds and it's going to be harder to get through. But a 15-minute conversation might be more likely after lunch on the second day, even after lunch on the first day, when the excitement dies down a bit. So don't necessarily go to your priority targets first. Go to your priority targets when you know that there'll be a lull. If there's a seminar on, for example, that you think a lot of people will attend, go at that time, because people like me and Paul and Phil, we can't leave our stand. So the crowd empties and we're free. So I think plan for 5 to 15, but read the room as well. Was there another question up the back? Oh.
Well, it's very similar.
Oh, okay.
And can industry make appointments prior to
Yes, we're still figuring out how. So we do have a meeting room space, and there'll be formal bookings for that space. In terms of just coming and talking to us, I would take an informal approach with that. Let us know you want to talk to us, and we can let you know when we're not involved in formal meetings. But believe it or not, we do have a few Korean delegates coming across, and they want to meet with a couple of companies. They're doing the 2 weeks quarantine because they're keen to get out and about. So definitely contact me. Let's make a time, and let us know what you want to talk about as well, because then if you only get 5-10 minutes, we can make sure it's a worthwhile 5 or 10 minutes.
Paul, during the break we spoke about value and the need for industry to highlight the value that they bring into your bid. Do you want to just elaborate on that for the audience as to why it's so important for you guys?
To reiterate sort of a little bit of what we discussed before, the main value that we're seeking at the moment that's outside that pure procurement is the value to AIC. The main elements to AIC that we're going to tie back is down 2nd, 3, 4, 5 levels. If let's use the same orange chair example. If you make orange chairs, but the wheels and casters are coming from Belgium, the seat upholstery is coming from the US, these are the type of things that we'll need you to be prepared for, that we're going to need to know, because it restricts the AIC offering. If you are a company that makes things that you've got your local supply chain sorted, everything you source is Australian, and you're partnering with other businesses to provide these things, that's again a differentiator that we would want to know, that's a part of your value proposition. South Australian companies, where your local member will benefit from you receiving a tender or a contract or anything of these, those guys are going to support you, so you can reach out through your networks to get in contact with people that offer grants or support, or can even be there on launch days and help out. We know, especially where we're working in Victoria, we tie in with the local members, we try to do the dog and pony shows and get things off the ground, is because AIC all the way through is how everyone benefits from the money that's spent. So it's coming back here to benefit us. So there's a political element, there's a financial element to the local community, there's jobs. There's jobs for veterans and Indigenous, which is why there's a huge focus on it. All these are tick boxes that the politicians are going to want to see. The key part of the value proposition to us is not just the orange chair and the pure procurement activities, it's the story that you can tell that we can then subsequently tell.
Thanks, Paul. So what we're seeing in the sector is a real shift in the landscape from industry being asked to respond to RFPs, and if you're particularly a small business, tier 2 or tier 3, just handing over a price via an email saying this is us, bit of a blurb about us, here's the price for what you've asked for. The landscape is shifting considerably, and it doesn't matter how small you are, you now have to learn how to promote your business and highlight that value. And for many of you, I know, that's actually not an easy task or an easy skill to do, because some of you don't really know and can't really define exactly what your capability is, and still trying to work out and understand what your value is. But now your whole business future is dependent upon what you write in that RFP, RFQ, RFI. So it's a big shift and big uplift in how you are operating in the defence sector. So a bit of a shameless self-plug, we've got a session on the 4th of May being conducted by Shipleys. 5th May, that's probably why I should be sacked, please sack me. 5th of May, and it's customer focused writing. Customer focused writing. It's really important. You might think I don't write to customers a lot, but everything that you will learn there will help you have the physical conversation, and even just respond to a quick response to a customer. So that's 5th of May. Space is still open for that one. Any other questions? Oh God, they're 4 minutes now.
Yeah, right up the back.
Yeah, you talked about the need to have targeted call charts or targeted contact.
Yeah.
In order to do that, other than sort of knowing what the overall program is that the
Is there a way to identify those critical touch points? I mean, you mentioned we're really be interested in someone that can do custom trains and work on R&D in that area. Knowing what those specialist areas are will certainly help SMEs to be able to say, yeah, look, that is something I can offer. I hadn't thought about it, but I can see that's something that they're particularly interested in. Is there that two-way opportunity?
There is, but the timing is quite limited. So, for example, at the roadshow, that was our way of saying these are the things we need. That evolves very rapidly. One way to do it, and it's research intensive, but to look at what the customer's asking for. So the customers ask for all of these different variants of vehicle. Both of the bidders don't have those variants of vehicle. And if it's called a recovery vehicle, you can make some assumptions around what would be on that vehicle. Now, with the AIC approach that we take, we might have a crane in Korea, but we're not going to just take the crane from Korea. We're going to say, well, is there a crane in Australia? And as it turned out, there wasn't. There was nobody designing cranes that could lift the weight that we needed. But then we had all these unsolicited responses around, well, I could design one for you, and it would be battery operated and would be this. And it was great because we built relationships with those companies. But they'd had to go away and do the research of, we know you've got a dozer blade. We don't think you've got a winch. And they came to us on those things. Some of the more simplified side of things, look at the trends for the customer. We know that they want connectivity. We know that they want situational awareness, general vehicle architecture. Generic? It is generic. So we're a Korean company. We have no idea what that is. If you know what that is and you come to us saying, I've got experience in this, happy days. So it is research intensive. There'll be other times where we come out and say, we need armoured welding capabilities, but by that point, a quad chart isn't going to be as impactful.
Can I, just elaborate on that? So organisations, primes, continually do roadshows to industry, and they'll actually tell you what they're looking for, what they're valuing. But your customer research, particularly in the defence sector, should be ongoing. One of the things we do at the DTC is we actually help our members to understand what those points are. If you actually ask us what the prime is looking for, what the opportunities, we can usually tell you what it is. If not, we can very quickly find out. So with most of our prime supporters, it's a lot easier for me to pick up the phone and say, right, this program's coming up. What are the 5 hot buttons? They'll tell us. I can then send that out and share that with you because I'll take my call. And that makes it a lot easier for you to engage. But your intelligence gathering, and we'll talk about this in the next session, is ongoing. So what you'll gather for this particular opportunity, it's not as though you're then down tools and then sit back and wait for the next opportunity to advance, because we know that they take 3 to 5 years to come to fruition. You're always gathering information and studying and understanding the customer.
Absolutely. Other questions? Yeah.
The workforce of the future was mentioned, and the training and enablement of those people, resources. What is the interface between the educational institutions such as the TAFE colleges, the universities, etc., even down to high school, in terms of vocational advancement, career guidance? Is it linked to a particular program of work, or should it be linked to a particular program of work? And what tools are going to be enabled across a general model? Because you can teach them small to medium enterprises have some common requirements of defence, such as quality, such as scale in many instances, availability, the local industry capabilities and growth of veterans and Indigenous workforce, etc., etc. They form a big matrix of pieces that you need to put into the puzzle. I'm just wondering how you correlate and collate all of those.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and timely, because the Federal Department has their Skilling Summit next week, because we all know that this is a problem that affects us all and requires all of us to contribute to fix. So for Hanwha, this is what I head up, the Industrial Development Unit. It has 4 segments. One of those segments is workforce development, and that's not just our workforce, it's the workforce. because we want to give back as well. We have the resources that we can do it, and we should. So we have got someone coming in as our workforce lead mid-year, thank God, because there's a lot of activity. We are forming relationships with veterans organisations and TAFEs in our community to look at our workforce planning and uplift requirements, and then they are going to work with us around each of our programs to find those people and make sure we've got the throughput to get their upskilling complete. So that's the limit of our project focus. Otherwise, our investments have to look at what is good for us in the long term. In Korea, Hanwha do this great event called the Hanwha Science Competition. It is for high school students. They get science projects. We sponsor it. They do the project. They come and present their findings, and it gets high school students interested in science. Most people in Korea are engineers anyway, but it helps keep that culture of science and of engineering alive. That's what we want to do in Australia for high school students as well. And one thing we've been speaking to our key suppliers about is how do we band together and target the state level education and training groups and the federal to jointly promote to people we're not going to hire tomorrow, to school kids, to university students. We can do a lot more when we do the same thing and we collaborate at that time, because the kids are still going to pick what they want to study.
It introduces a bit of a dichotomy because the federal government actually does not administer or manage the educational systems at the state level. But you've got these Commonwealth or sovereign programs of work, as you say, they have political connotations and effect. They determine scale, they determine involvement of local industry. So tying together state-based educational systems towards a Commonwealth program sometimes can be a bit challenging.
Completely agree with you. And where we tend to take our nod from the federal government is around their priorities. So the Modern Manufacturing Fund is a great example. The federal government has said the 6 things that they want to focus on in manufacturing. It happens that defence is one of those. So we know that in targeting students for the future, it is a federal government priority to have people working in defence manufacturing. It just gives us that extra level of support when we're talking to the Victorian Department of Education and Training about programs and funding that is going to lead to part of a federal initiative. Yeah. The political side of things is not always much fun, but you make a very good point. I think there was another. Yeah.
I was really pleased to hear you talk about rolling stock, because one of the key parts of our business supplying rubber products into rolling stock. One of the key challenges that I always find in these massive projects is a company like Hanwha or any of the primes that come in and say, we want to build a tank, we want to build the work package is a turret system, sort of a massive component of that part, of which some of our products may fit into that. But to take the orange chair example, we are not supplying the entire orange chair, we're supplying the wheels, which is still an important part. What advice do you have for companies like ours that are supplying something, I guess, critical to the whole job, but it's not the sexy gun part of the whole project?
That is a really tough situation, because your products could be used by us, by EOS, by any of our partners, and if you're just targeting us, you could miss out on opportunities with our partners. So I've got two key comments on that, and one of them is actually about Rheinmetall, and something Rheinmetall did really, really well on phase 2 was release a diagram that showed the 40 tier 1 suppliers. So you could say, well, I know that these guys will be doing, and they didn't say the systems, that's the downside, but you can then see, well, who is my target? It's not just Rheinmetall, it's these 40 companies and the ones that will need rubber components. The other one is around consistency. And consistency is different to nagging. So when we're looking at componentry, so rubber's a great example. At the moment, we need a certain number of really bespoke rubber-based systems. Not every rubber company would make every one of those systems, and that's what we're learning. But what we're finding is we'll put out a tender, companies will come back and say, I can only do one of your 6. The reasons I can't do the other 5 is this. We're interested in doing more. We learn so much from that process because at the moment we're not buying anything anyway. We're getting costings together and we're learning about the supply chain. Those 6 things we put in our RFP are reflective of 150 different rubber components on the vehicle. So even though you can just do one and you've sold yourself to us with that one, if we win the program, there's probably going to be another 10 items that you can do. So getting your foot in the door and being prepared to check in it might be every 4 months, it might be every 6 months, it might be every time we present somewhere, just so we're thinking of you when we win that contract and we pull out our AIA schedule and with all of our details about SMEs and Indigenous businesses. And when we come back to you, we remember what a great bid you gave us. And we say, well, what else in this list of 150 can you help us with? So it is harder for you guys, but there's also more opportunity. We're going to have a few of our partners here from Israel, Canada, and Korea at Land Forces. They're also good people to know because they're also doing their own AIC programs. Yeah, go for it.
From a different angle, so I actually do have a technical background, but that's just by chance. Put an accounting spreadsheet in front of me, I'm lost. I do the sexy gun stuff, right? So when we go to land warfare conferences or presentations, people that do have a tech background are super excited about it, and they want to talk to you and they want to tell you about it. It is as much as you trying to say to them, hey, I've got a great product and this is the product, and asking them to say, hey, take me through the bit, show us this, and if they're excitable about it, so Millie will just say, yeah, go and talk to one of the techs or the engineers. But they'll be excited and they'll say that, and it's in those conversations, because there's soldiers, there's workers, there's engineers, there's a lot. These roadshows have a lot of people there. They're going to take you through, they're going to say, the turret's fantastic, it's really exciting, it does this and this, and you can target 5 different targets at once and everything else, and you're going to pick up in those conversations, oh really, do this, and what's that, and where's that component, how is that made, and you can start to target in. So by the time you're tracking back to speak to Millie, you've got your angle from your intel, which, sorry, if you're going into that after, that's your data gathering, that's your information gathering you've done there. That's how you take that angle then from a different.
That would really help me. As we're just walking around the vehicle going, I can do that and that and that, that does make my life easier. Do you have a question?
Yeah, and to use the example of the crane, and I think Randall had the same question as me, but now within the crane you need hydraulics. We produce bespoke hydraulics, but we're actually trying to team with other companies to make a bigger system that's more relevant. So how do you see that as a good approach, Millie, and for DTC as well? Can you contact us, put us in contact with companies to produce a much bigger system than the wheel of the orange chair that we do at the moment?
That's a really good question, and to tell you what happened in this crane scenario without naming the companies, it was a hydraulics company that we spoke to. They came to us and said, this is our design. We imagine that. The one that you would have used on your previous fighting vehicle in Korea would have had a rod through the middle, the hydraulics would have done this. And they said, I don't think the rod would be helpful in the middle. How about we don't penetrate the roof? How about we do it this other way? And wonderful idea. Had never made a crane before. And that was a hurdle. And not for us, but for our timeline. So we took that design to our highly risk-averse technical peers in Korea, and they said, it is brilliant. Does it work? So we partnered them up with a vehicle design company. And the 2 companies, that they got on so well, and they're continuing to pursue opportunities together. One was to enhance the confidence of the design because of their broader design capability. And they got really close. It was just going to be a schedule issue. So in those sort of examples, while we're tendering, we can't be any more risky to our customer. It's very hard. But we want to go back and say to those companies, because Korea's going to need more cranes, and this was a brilliant design. We want to do that, but it's hard to do it in a project environment. It has to be more BAU or in the lead up to a program, which is more resource intensive, lower probability of it coming off, but it's also a much higher probability of getting it on the base vehicle. So we love that stuff.
So it goes without saying the Defence Teaming Centre helps industry to team, and our slogan is connecting, developing and advocating. So we can help industry to team and we connect companies to team.
Sorry, I'm not a member yet. So.
That's right. Yeah, that was a sales pitch. So, but teaming collaboration is an important aspect or way of going in the future, because we know that our landscape here in Australia is dominated by small companies, and companies like Hanwha and their partners EOS are now starting to look for subsystem suppliers. So they're wanting industry to come to them with subsystems and integrated suppliers. The appetite for having the company provide the washers and another company provide the screws, or using the chair scenario, different companies providing the casters, the upholstery, they actually just want the chair. Industry, you sort it out, just give me a chair. Okay? I don't want to have to write 5 contracts for the supply of the various parts and then do the assembly, that's your job. Some primes will help you identify a partner because they will have a number of companies who have submitted and they've realised that those companies don't have the right requirements and capability to complete this entire subsystem, and some primes will say, actually, here you go, and you've got to have that perfect example, and we can also help as well.
I think it's important though that the Australian culture had traditionally been, this is my clever stuff, this is my idea, I don't want Joe Bloggs down the street. It doesn't really compete with me, it sort of goes for the orange chair bit. That I think is something that we have to overcome, and whether that's done as a value model to say that, you know, we recognise your IP is important to you as a business and as a competitive differentiator, but look at what your business strategy is to get to whatever the next step in your business growth is.
And that's the very reason why the DTC, shameless self-plug again, runs its teaming collaboration programs through our TeamX. We take companies on the journey of coming together, we teach you how to team, how to collaborate, we give you the legal framework to pull that team together, how to operate as a unified team. So again, part of what we do is we put on programs for that specific reason.
That's not just in Australia.
Last question.
Last one, sorry everyone. Obviously we talked at length around the commercial side of a submission and then all the story behind it. I suppose there's a question for both, and the answer might be slightly different for your businesses, is there a possibility of successful down select for a business that is potentially supplying a higher cost product if the story is there? Or is it a case of, here's the price, and if you don't meet the price, if you're not in the top 3 or top 5 businesses, you're out? Is it a composite score across the whole piece, or is there a gate in terms of pricing to allow you to tell your story?
At this point, probably I still do.
I was going to say,
Because, no, okay, so to differentiate why we've got full views, because that's from a pure procurement activity point of view, that he's going through, he's seeing new quality, he's checking the boxes, he's doing the audits, he's looking at the numbers, not to speak for you. On my space, I'm after the story. The story has more value to me. I tell the story with Millie, we go back to the Commonwealth's asking the story. The numbers are the numbers. Because if you get AIC content high, that money's going back into the industry. That money's turning into jobs. So from our point of view, it's not a pure procurement activity where we're driving down to the bottom. It's a big part of it.
What's missing from that too is, what is your cost down approach? So if you are experienced in engaging in long-term contracts, what's your experience in delivering cost downs for the customer over a period of time? So yeah, you can respond to a price, but if it's a 3-year contract delivering thousands of parts, what continuous improvement system have you got in place to support and work with your customer to achieve a cost down over the life of the contract? That's also very important.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it is quite situational. As a basis for Hanwha at this point in time on Land 400, we are not after the cheapest product. We have picked on multiple occasions tenders at the higher end because of the story in some cases. Regional business has demonstrated experience on a previous defence program, and we want to keep leveraging that experience that they've developed. There's a bit of risk, but technically great AIC, strong credentials, a bit more expensive, that's fine, it's going back into a regional community. In other cases, we'll be saying, because we're market testing, is this a reasonable price compared to what we're paying in Korea or compared to what we're paying in Israel? So armour, Australia is more expensive than Israel by far because of the material access. So for us to say, well, it's, you know, there's a huge price difference, so we should just stay in Israel, it's not that simple. It's, well, what is the benefit of the price increase for coming here? So it's, let's look at the price subject to the story. Then in a much smaller scenario bucket is, can we do it effectively if we do it locally? And that is more on, and I'll be honest here, it's more on our Land 8116 program, where the programs come out of nowhere, the customer doesn't have much money, they're not buying many vehicles, and we don't have a facility. So you can see that cost is really important to the customer there. So all of those things can happen.
And Australia's never been the cheapest place to manufacture anything, really.
No, but you'd be surprised some of the things we're finding, because even the Koreans were saying, you know, it's too expensive. Tenders come back in, multiple bidders at the same price point, cheaper than Korea. So I think we're more efficient in some cases. I shouldn't say that, don't repeat that to any of my colleagues. But yeah, there are those gems and we've got to look for them.
All right, we'll crack on with the...
Sorry guys, I spoke a lot.
No, don't apologise. So the good thing about what Millie just spoke about is that I had a bit of a quiet, proud mum moment, because it's like when you have kids and you tell the kids to go clean their room, go clean their room, and they don't clean their room, but someone comes over for dinner and suddenly they go and clean their room. To have, you know, a potential customer of yours standing in the room pretty much say everything that I cover off on Defence 101 and cover off on what I'm going to cover off and what I've already covered off, and we didn't collaborate on any of this material, is very, it's a proud mum moment for me, is all I'm going to say on that. So, establishing a trade show strategy. Why do you need a strategy to go to the trade show? Well, you're going to take 3 or 4 days away from the business. You're going to hop on a plane, you're going to fly up, incur costs, you're going to incur accommodation and food and drink, and potentially be left with a 14-day quarantine bill when you come home in case things change during that time period. So that's a huge investment. You might want to plan to make sure you get the best out of that investment. So I've said it a few times, 3 to 5 years it typically takes to win work in the defence sector. Now, you come in, you decide you want to come into defence and you think, okay, this is new, I'm going to give my hand at this. You start familiarising yourself with the sector and yeah, you think I can do this. I need defence into my portfolio because my business is ag sector heavy or oil and gas, and I think having a bit of defence portfolio will give me a great diversified business. So off you go. You start to establish a strategy for your business and how you're going to grow business in defence. And you need that strategy because you've just realised, you've just heard from a potential customer that the market is huge. Opportunities take a long time to come to fruition. Roadshows happen. You're continually going and bidding and approaching and touching the customer. Tagging the customer? Approaching. And you're building your relationships with the customers. It all takes time. Procurement life cycle is very, very long. So part of that is intelligence gathering, and Millie spoke about some of the things that they're hot buttons, what they're looking for. Intelligence gathering is what you need to do across your entire journey, which is where the trade show comes into the puzzle. So what are the expected outcomes you're wanting to get from your trade show? Are you going for the free drinks at the end of day one, which is going to be the best party ever? No. Are you going there for some targeted opportunities? Are you going there to see your mates? No, you're going there to find out what are the opportunities, and you know that your target customers are going to be there. So, what research have you done? So there's no point going to the trade show if you have done no research. Who are you targeting? What company do they work for? Will they be at the trade show? What are they looking for? Are they likely to meet with you before you go? When you do your research, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So that's why the research is really important. Because as Millie just said, on day 1 and 2, it's really busy. You've got 5, potentially 10 minutes to have a conversation. You want to make sure that that 5 or 10 minutes is touching on those real hot buttons that they're really in the market for. So, now land forces can be used to do a real pursuit for an opportunity, and you can treat it as that, or land forces could simply just be part of customer research for your business. You may not be in the market for a particular opportunity, but this is an intelligence gathering exercise for you. Probably expensive one, but you might have some other business to do up there at the same time. You might only go to the show for a day whilst you're doing other business. Either way, trade show is an invaluable source of market intelligence on your market, your competitors, and also your customers. So I often say to people, when you go to a trade show, listen, watch and hear. I love people watching. Pretty sad, I know. Maybe I'm a closet stalker, I don't know. But a lot happens at a trade show and you can sit back and observe. If you're there looking for information on your customers and your competitors, you'll see it all there at the trade show. Your competitors will have a pod. They will put their products and their services on display. You can see that, you can observe that. Watch how they present. Is that the same image you want to present? Do you strive to be better? Well, take note of how you are trying to position yourself against them. These are all an opportunity for you to observe, watch, listen, and learn. Now, is it a pursuit? Are you going there to actually get a conversation? I've had, and was it trade show? The last trade show we did was Pacific, 2019? Yes, 2019 Pacific. I had a company whose trade show was finished at the end of day 1. They had a pod, and he said, no, I secured my three meetings, had them. I'm all done for this trade show. I said, but you're here for the 3 days. He said, I know, but I had my 3 objectives, had my 3 meetings, nailed it. Got the follow-up meetings with that, they were happy. So they had a real objective, and that meant whatever happened on days 2 and 3 was just cream for them. So they knew exactly who they wanted to see. They secured the meeting before the show. That's what smart people do. They get in contact with the potential target, and those who are on the Defence SA stand have been given the opportunity to identify who they would like an introduction or a meeting with. If you don't take up those opportunities, you miss out. Now, best time to get the meetings is days 2 and 3. Because day 3, a lot of people are bugging out, yet the people on the stands have to stay there, so things are a little bit quieter, you get more time. But if you want a meeting, best to book it in advance. Typically when I was at Lockheed, my calendar was full 2 weeks out from the trade show. People were rocking up a week before and even at the trade show wanting time. I said, no, sorry, I'm full up. Now, know what your desired outcome is with that meeting with the customer. There's no point sitting down and swapping business cards and talking about the weather. It's got to be really opportunistic, and for the company I referred to before, they wanted to secure a follow-up meeting. That was all they wanted. They wanted the customer to come to their premises, and they got that. So they were very particular. They sat down, they pulled out their calendar and put it in the calendar straight away. So you've got to be really organised and think about what it is that you're actually wanting. Do you just want improved recognition? Are you just touching base with the customer? As Millie said, you've got to touch base with us sometimes. Just keep coming back and letting us know you're still here and what you're doing. Is it you want to get that site visit? What is your objective? So be very clear about what it is that you're looking for. But don't underestimate the power and the amount of intelligence you can source from a trade show. So yes, you might have that customer pursuit focus, but it's also an opportunity to source as much information as you possibly can about your competition. So we've been speaking about the customer, their issues and what it is that they're looking for. So this is a really good time to think about what is the difference between a customer issue, their motivator and their hot button, because they're actually not the same thing. So an issue are their concerns, their worries, they keep the customer awake at night. So we've all got those even in our own day-to-day businesses. Everything keeps me awake at the moment. Lots of issues. I don't know how to solve those issues. Waking up at 2 in the morning isn't solving them, but those issues are there. Motivators are the objectives that the customer is trying to achieve. So my motivator is I have to please my members. I have to deliver services to my members. So I have my objectives and things that keep me going. They're my motivators. My hot buttons is the consolidated list of the issues and the motivators. So things that are keeping me up at night and my motivators. If people can come to me and make my life easier by combining and solving my issues and helping me maximise my motivators, happy days. I can probably get some sleep at night. Don't you just love these build slides? I hate them. So, the hot buttons are a combination of the two. The motivators sit around, the customer issues are the big picture, plenty of them floating around, as I said. No shortage of issues keeping us up at night. Motivators are the things that drive us, but right in the centre are the hot buttons. They're the things that we really want to be focusing on when it comes to researching our customer. So how do we find what they are? Well, it's quite simple. We do a SWOT analysis, and you're probably thinking, yeah, no, I don't need to do this. This is all marketing stuff 101. I don't need to do this. Well, you do. You'd be surprised. Even I get surprised. Each year I sit down and do a SWOT for the DTC, and we self-evaluate. And I am continually surprised on the changing landscape and some of the emerging things that are beginning to change in terms of what's a new strength, what's a new threat for us, what's a new weakness, what's something that was a strength last year suddenly become a weakness for me. So our businesses are always changing. So what's a positive discriminator for us? And what are our weaknesses? I hate these slide builds. Make sure we don't do these next time. Okay, so what are our strengths of our business? Because we know that's why customers value us. They're things that keep us in business and keep us at the front and forefront of our customers' minds. But what are our weaknesses? What are the things that we know about our business that we don't quite do so well? We want to improve. We know they don't help us, but we need to own them. And then what are our threats? And the threats is where we are directly relevant to looking at our competitors. So at the end of the day, in the defence sector, it is a highly competitive market if you are delivering a commodity product or service. So you really do need to take the time to understand who your competitors are and what your differentiators are. So what are your strengths against those competitors? So looking at what are your positive and negative discriminators. When you do your SWOT analysis, you can very quickly work out what are the things that are going to go in favour of your business to promote and highlight your strengths as a business. Your weaknesses are the negative discriminators. They're the things that the customer is going to shy away wanting to do business with you. And then the opportunities are the things where you can potentially change and move a weakness to a strength. And that's where you've got to do the hard work inside your business. So the challenge for you before you go to the trade show is to do some real hardcore homework on your business. Know more about your business than you've ever known before. Even take the time to do this on your competitors. Try to take the time to know more about your competitors' business than they know about their business. Why? Because you will know more about your business and how to position your business in front of your customer. So, the thing you need to be focusing on is what does your customer need? What are they looking for that they need from you? What has the competitor got and what are their capabilities? and how does that impact your business? You need to focus on, yes, it is there, the discriminators and what customer needs. So what you want to be focusing on, the sweet spot, is what the customer needs, what your capabilities are. So you don't want to be going in and just talking at and selling to your customer something that you think they need, but they've already got a supplier. I think it was Phil said at the beginning, or maybe Paul said, I don't know. You've already got suppliers who are delivering the chair. So how are you going to get into the supply chain? Well, you're going to have to displace an existing supplier. That's real hard work to displace an existing supplier. They spoke about reliability, reliability, reliability. So would you, from a BD perspective, would you go in and pursue that opportunity, or would you look for another opportunity in that customer where they have a need and your capabilities are directly relevant and the competitor's not involved? It takes a little bit of discipline to force yourself to take the time, drop the tools, drop the day-to-day work of the business, and really start thinking about your business from a strategic perspective about what you can do for the customer. Taking the time will make the world of difference of how much you invest in pursuing work in the defence sector. So when it comes to knowing your customers, it's basic things. Know the organisation, know their structure and the individual names. Know how to pronounce the organisation names. For those who don't know, it's not Thales, it's Thales. Okay, it's embarrassing sometimes. And it's not BAE, it's BAE. Okay, if you don't know, just ask. That's why we're here, the DTC. We help you. If you remember, we help you along the way. No question is silly. But know the names of the people who you want to work with. And before you meet them, do a bit of research. It's not stalking, it's research. Take the time to work out what they look like. Why? Because if you happen to bump into them in the lunch line, at the canteen, at the trade show, you might get an opportunity to have a conversation with them when you've been trying to meet with them all day and they've been too busy. So if you know what they look like, you could at least sort of have a conversation with them. When you go to DTC BD After 5 events, sometimes we get 150, 200 people at our events. There's a lot of people there, but if you know exactly what the person looks like, you can make a beeline for that person, introduce yourself and have a conversation. So a lot of the information that you're looking for, believe it or not, is freely available on the internet. LinkedIn is a great source of information, as is Google. Google Images, you know, it doesn't take a lot of time to do a bit of research. So do a bit of homework and find out the individuals' names, how to pronounce their names. Some people have very difficult to pronounce names. Ask around to find out the correct way to pronounce it. It just shows a sign of respect for the customer that you're wanting to engage with. So a little bit of homework goes a long way. Now, post-trade show follow-up. This is the most important thing. So remember, during the day, you've had your little book, you're on the stand, and you've had people come and go into your stand, and at the conclusion of each meeting, you've got your business card, you've stapled it into your book, and you've made some notes, and you've made some notes about what actions you need to take post-trade show. Don't forget, follow up, okay? Because you want to secure or close or progress that connection. So follow up all leads, go back to the office, ask the marketing team to follow up with whatever actions you ask them to do in terms of sending out quad charts or marketing information to whoever. Continue to touch base with the contacts to grow relationships. Invite the customer to your site for a visit. If it's a real opportunity that you are gunning for, at some point, they will want to see your business. So it doesn't hurt to offer them an invitation. Now, they may not come straight away because they're interstate, but through the DTC, you might hear that they're in town. Well, they're in town. Perhaps I can ask them to come out and check out my place. So there's things that you need to do post trade show. Most importantly, take the time to record the leads that turn into meaningful relationships. That's a statistic that you should all start following, particularly if you're a business owner. If you've got a marketing or a BD or a salesperson working for you, start tracking that. Okay? BD people, and I don't mean to offend any BD people or salespeople in the room, you do have lots of conversations, and sometimes the boss will say, "What'd you do today?" "Flat out, boss, flat out. Lots of conversations." "Great, must be doing good." Why aren't our sales increasing? So, you know, you've got to start getting data in for your business. Now, if none of these leads are developing into meaningful relationships, why not? Why keep attending a trade show? Why keep going to events? Why keep going and pursuing this sector? As a business, you are investing into this sector. It may well be that this might not be the sector for you. So start recording that information. Be prepared to cap what the investment is that you are making in pursuing work and how long you are prepared to wait before you get a purchase order. So today we've gone over a few things about your quad chart, the importance of the quad chart, what to expect for the trade show. Really important to focus on getting yourself a strategy and some objectives outlined for your trade show presence. And it was great to also have Millie and the team here talking about what they look for in a quad chart, because it makes me feel satisfied that what I'm saying is right. So we've done that. Now, follow up the leads. A lot of things we've covered off. The slides will be made available to you, because I think there's some great stuff in Millie's slides too, which I'm sure you'll all enjoy. Bit of housekeeping before we head off down the street. We've got V here from DTC. She's been leading our quad chart collection activity. Did you want to?
I just wanted to remind everyone that we are offering an opportunity for DTC members to publish their quad chart in our upcoming catalogue. The catalogue is for the Lanfear's Trade Show. The due date for you to submit it is the 5th. So I do suggest you submit it earlier if you're looking to have a reviewed or for us to provide some feedback. And I do encourage you guys to take up on the offer, because it is a good opportunity to promote your business and capabilities, especially if you've got a niche area, niche skill or expertise. And if you have any questions, just email me. My name is Dee, or just do business at email on our website. Thank you, guys.
And if you're not attending the if you're not attending the Defence SA stand, how much is it to have your quad chart published?
It's just $50 to have it published.
There you go, small price to pay. Now, what is the value of being in that quad chart guide? Well, when primes come to town and they say, "We want to know who's in your membership," I get this guide and I hand it to them. They have everyone's quad chart here and they go away and study it. So it's quite valuable. It means they don't have to carry all of the quad charts around. They're here, they can flag it, they can make notes. It's quite handy. It's just a little thing that we do for our members. So if you need an extension of time, go and speak to go speak to V and beg for that extension. I know Andy's already volunteered to help me carry the boxes of catalogues through the airport for me. So any questions before we wrap up? Dave, yes.
Now, just on the catalogue that you just showed there, would that be the same form factor that it would be printed in for Lanfear's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, no double-sided quad charts, please. All landscape, no portrait.
So it'd be effectively A5 size on the page.
Yeah, so you can just do it on A4 and the designers will just shrink it down to publish in here. When you go to a export trade show through Team Defence Australia, they give you a horrible flat template to use, and everyone's quad chart looks the same. Great concept in terms of putting everyone together in a catalogue, but you lose the imagery, you lose everything. So what we did for Pacific was we just published and replicated your quad chart, and that provided, it was a great outcome for everyone. So that's what we've chosen to do for Land Forces. So that's what we're doing. Any other questions? That's it. Thank you.